Hi, my name is Ryan Baxter, and I am Senior Executive Research and Development Chef for Kraft Foodservice. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite things to make, and that is a very simple sauce that's paired frequently with fish called Beurre Blanc. Beurre Blanc is a sauce that is French in origin and literally translates to white butter sauce. And as you might expect, this sauce would have butter in it, and the ingredients we're likely to see are here on my bench. So we have fresh butter, which is typically unsalted butter. You also see I have some fresh thyme leaves, which are commonly added as an aromatic, some black peppercorns, some shallots, which I'll be slicing later on, and then some bay leaves. These ingredients will form the base of our sauce and the reduction that we're going to make a little bit later on. Over here is a bunch of ingredients that are going to be used for adding additional flavor and garnish to this sauce, and we'll talk about those in a little while. We'll be flavoring it with Kraft Grey Poupon Country Dijon mustard, which is a very traditional flavor that pairs extremely well with fish. One of the things that I think is important to note is that Beurre Blanc has a reputation, I think, among chefs for being difficult to make. What I'd like to be able to show you today is that with understanding the key principles of how to make this sauce and how to control the temperature, what I think you'll find is that this is really not a difficult sauce to make, despite its reputation to the contrary. Okay, so the first step in making a Beurre Blanc is to prepare what is called the reduction. And as I pointed out earlier, we begin with some of these aromatic ingredients. So we're going to start with a little bay leaf, some fresh thyme, and some cracked peppercorns, which have just been crushed with the back of my knife. That's a very common first base ingredients for almost any kind of Beurre Blanc that you make. I also produced a little earlier some thinly sliced shallots, which are again a very common ingredient as well. They go into the pan. And notice that there's no fat or any oil or anything in the pan right now. That's really not a necessary component. And the reason simply is we're going to be adding some liquids. This happens to be vinegar, which is white wine vinegar. And because I really like a lemony flavor, we're going to take some lemon. And what I love about this sauce is there's no need to strain it at this point, because we're going to be straining it later on. So I just take the lemon, don't worry about the seeds, and put it all in. And I put some squeezed lemon into the pot. It's very common to have white wine, obviously, as a French sauce. It goes really well with fish. I'm going to add a tablespoon or two of some white wine. And then my last addition is going to be a little bit of lemon zest. And again, because I plan to have a lemony flavor, that lemon zest adds a beautiful lemony citrus note that is highly desirable with fish. Now at this point I'm going to turn up my heat pretty high, and I'm going to reduce this to a point that the French call sec. And sec is really important. Sec is a word that you may have heard or used before. You may have seen it on wine. Sec literally translates to meaning dry. And so what's going on here? Why are we reducing this down? Why are we going through this process? Well, there's a couple of reasons why we're trying to get to that state that we called sec. The first reason is we're trying to infuse the flavor out of these aromatics that we just put in here, right? So we put in the raw shallots, and they're kind of strong tasting. We really want to draw out that black pepper flavor. We want to make sure we get the infusion out of the bay leaf and the fresh herbs. And that's primarily the reason why we cook it. The secondary, and probably maybe even an as important reason, is we're trying to reduce the volume of the liquid. We're trying to draw out the water. We're trying to concentrate those acidic, aromatic flavors, and we want it as dry as possible, because when we add the butter later on, if it's not reduced enough, the sauce will be too thin. All right, we're just about there, and one of the things that I'm looking for is this mixture has begun to dry. The shallots have begun to cook, and it's starting to get bubbly. This is a point where you need to be very careful to not let it burn. And there is almost no liquid left in this pan. I want to show you. It is nearly dry. The shallots are cooked. There's probably about a teaspoon or less of liquid. It's at this point we can take the fire down to relatively low. And now we're going to begin to start mounting in the butter. Now, before we do that, I want to talk to you about the heavy cream. I added probably about a teaspoon of heavy cream. It's not a lot. Traditionally, some chefs do not use heavy cream, but in the United States, most chefs do use heavy cream as a stabilizer. And at this point, I can begin adding my butter. Now, my butter was cut earlier into small cubes. Note that I've turned the temperature down to a very low temperature, as low as almost that I can make it, and I'm going to start adding butter in small amounts while whisking. And this is really the key step here. We're going to start adding butter, and we're going to whisk. And this process can be done, it really needs to be done slowly. This is the step that you should not rush, because if you're going to break the sauce at any point or separate it into that oily mass, which is undesirable, this will be the step that will happen because your temperature got too high. And at this point, again, you should never let this thing boil. And I'm going to use the residual heat to finish the melting process. But look how white and creamy that sauce is. The butter's almost melted all the way. I'm continuing. The heat that I used was very low. Again, this sauce should not really ever exceed about 140 degrees. Otherwise, it does have a tendency to break. Now all the butter is whisked in, and we're ready for the final step, which is straining and adding our garnish. Okay, after adding the butter, or mounting the butter as the expression goes, to the sauce, the next step is to add the garniture and strain. And actually, straining would be the first thing we want to do. And our primary goal here is to take those aromatics, which we had added to it to give you that beautiful flavor, and we need to take those aromatics out so that they can be gone and we can add the garniture. So what we're going to do is have a little strainer nearby, and we're going to take this sauce and we're going to pour it into a little bowl with a strainer. It helps that this sauce stays warm. Now, you know, this sauce has a point where it actually can be too hot. I talked about that, and it has that danger of what we call breaking. But it also has a point where it could get too cold. And you've probably had examples where butter just gets too cold and it solidifies, and that's something we want to watch out for as well. The temperature at which it can get too cold is about 75 or 80 degrees. It starts getting very stiff and has the potential to break. And the temperature at which it will get too hot is about 140 degrees. So keeping it near that 120 to 140 degrees is really the key step. So I've removed the garniture, and you could see those are things you wouldn't want to serve, you want to get rid of, but they added some really great flavor, so that was important that we kept them. We're going to move those aside, and then we're going to finish the sauce. We're going to take some items that we showed earlier. I have some tomatoes here, I have some herbs, I have a little bit of chopped lemon, and we're going to add some of that to the sauce. And then our last addition, and a very classical contribution to these types of sauces, is our Kraft Grey Poupon Country Dijon. This mustard reacts really very well with fish, has a great flavor, and has that beautiful texture that makes this sauce both flavorful and visually interesting. Okay? And this is really something you add to taste based on the type of fish that you use. And you know, this dish goes really well with all types of fish. For example, lobster, scallops, sole. We're going to be showing it today with some salmon. It also goes well with some very lean white meats like pork and even chicken breast. So this is a very versatile fish sauce that also extends to other types of meats. The last thing we do is we correct the seasoning with a little bit of salt. And typically you don't need pepper in here, because remember we used some pepper in the initial reduction, and also pepper kind of will change the visual nature. We want to be careful to not do that. And then our final plating is we take that piece of salmon that we had cooked using the saute technique, and I also cooked one shrimp. Put that right on top of it like that. To finish this dish, we can use this Beurre Blanc that we prepared with Grey Poupon Country Dijon, which is a great complementary element to this fish dish and many others. For more tips, tricks, and techniques, go to kraftfoodservice.com.